Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital. Hope you're all doing great, and welcome to this new video right here. On Bitcoin, we're going to do a full update. Well, Bitcoin and the crypto market, I should say. We're going to do a full update on Bitcoin here. We'll talk about XRP, we'll talk about Ethereum, we'll talk about some altcoins, but we'll start off with fundamentals. Today, we should have gotten some news, but that hasn't come out. I mean, obviously because of the US government shutdown, it's not coming out. I have the idea, or at least it feels like, I missed some headline news, just because if you take a look at the general financial markets, we are rallying here. So let me quickly check out my news feeds to the left of me to see if I missed something. But you can see the S&P 500, talking about the fundamentals. We might not have gotten news today, or at least we got the ISM services PMI. One data reading was higher than expected. One data reading was lower than expected. That's fine. That really doesn't do much to the price, right? I mean, if you take a look at the probability of 2 rate cuts for 2025, it's still 85.8%, right? So that's basically the same, which is bullish, but that's the same, right? So this news really did not change anything. And when I'm taking a look at everything that's going on in the world right now, I don't really see anything where I say, all right, well that affected the markets. No, I just think general financial markets are strong, and that's what we're seeing, and that's also why Bitcoin is still relatively strong. Now, elephant in the room, I said it was most likely that we would pull back from this level, and honestly, look, the thing is that I still think that we are closer to a local top than the bottom, right? The bottom right here was at 109,000. I think we're closer to a local top. I still think there's a lot of leverage in the markets. I still think we are at a major resistance level right here. So everything there points me towards saying, all right, and there's also a ton of sentiment about people saying, oh, we're going to all-time highs, etc., which is normally a bit of a top signal as far as I'm aware. So for all those reasons, I still think we are forming a local top right here. We're also getting some bearish divergences here. If you take a look at the volume is still relatively high, but you can see that the volume is decreasing, especially if you compare to yesterday. You can also see that the RSI is making lower highs. So there's plenty of reasons for me to say that we're going to pull back, but I do want to stress that first of all, every major pullback often starts with a bearish divergence move up, right? So that we actually have, we create a local top, then we have one more move up, and then we drop down. So that is something I think you need to be aware of right now as well, right? So that we are going to pull up to 122.5 first, before pulling back into 116 and 115. And I also do want to stress, and this is something I've personally been doing, when you zoom out and when you talk about and when you summarize the week we've seen so far for Bitcoin and altcoins, I think you have to be bullish on the markets as a whole, right? So even though short term for Bitcoin I expect a pullback, I've still been buying and I've still been longing altcoins, and I think so should you. There are a lot of strong altcoins right now. We'll go over a couple of them in a moment, and this is definitely not a time to short. Definitely not. And that's something I'm very firm about, and something I personally also would never do. So while I call for a pullback on Bitcoin, you should be aware that doesn't mean that I think you should start shorting or that you should not buy other altcoins. No, Bitcoin, even if it pulls back to 115,000, during that whole move down, I personally will keep longing stuff. But okay, so those are my thoughts on Bitcoin specifically. When we take a look at Ethereum and when we're taking a look at XRP, those look relatively stable. As you can see, basically over the course of the day, those have been stable. I expect the same as for Bitcoin. I think it's, XRP, I think it's going to remain relatively steady around $3. So XRP is probably not going to move too much. Ethereum, I still do think that we're going to pull back into 4,350. At 4,250 before we see a real continuation of this rallying. And then, last but certainly not least, potentially even the part of the video that you're most interested in, altcoins. All right, what altcoins are major opportunities at this point of time? There's a couple of altcoins that I wanted to talk about. Aptos has been incredibly strong. I would say it's relatively late, but this has been very strong. So if we're able to break out of this value area high at 5.5, or if we're going to see a pullback into that level at 4.7, I think this is a great coin to keep your eyes on. I still think Pengu is primed to rally up higher within the range right here. And when we're more, over the course of today, when we're taking a look at more coins with momentum, one of the categories that's gaining a lot of momentum again is the Binance ecosystem, right? CZ has been talking about Binance and the BNB Smart Chain quite a lot on X again, and we're seeing coins like Cake, but also something like Hook, and even something like Aster recovering fairly well. So that's definitely a narrative to keep your eyes on. And here you can see and you can see BNB, you know, the main Binance coin. It's also performing relatively well. Near is relatively strong. Like I said, Aptos is quite strong. Are there any other coins that are really... Yeah, I mean, Litecoin, same thing as with Pengu. I would wait for a pullback, but I do think Litecoin is going to move up higher. And even something like Athena, but I would be a little bit careful with Athena. But yeah, those are some altcoins that I wanted to highlight. That's it for now, I think. I think that's everything you need to know regarding the fundamentals, my thoughts on Bitcoin, and my thoughts on the markets as a whole. If you still do have any questions, of course, let me know down in the comments. But that's it for now. So thank you for watching. Take care. Have a great weekend in advance. And bye.